All right, you guys, sorry, camera's a little shaky. So, today we are talking about graphing and solving inequalities. Okay, so remember from last unit, we talked about equations and expressions, right? So now we are talking about inequalities. So, let's define an inequality. So an inequality is when two sides of the math sentence are not equal. Okay, before I go any farther in the video, remember I do attach the blank notes on Canvas, so if you would like to print those off and fill them in with me, that is highly recommended, is not required. Okay. So next, the four signs of inequalities, right? So equations use equal signs. Inequalities use inequality signs. So those are, okay, this is less than, okay, greater than, okay, whoops, less than, or equal to. So sometimes they actually can be equal. If they have that little extra line on the bottom, that means they are either less than or equal to. Okay, and then the last one, greater than or equal to. Alrighty. Okay, so we just defined inequalities, so now we are going to graph them, okay? So let's zoom in on number 3. Okay, so number 3, it's telling us that k is greater than 5. So before we go any farther, I want us to make this note on our paper, okay? And I'll explain what this note means in a second. So, actually, let's do it over here. So I'll zoom out, and where we just define these guys. So next to just our less than, it's gonna be an open dot. Not a 0, it's an open dot, and I'll tell you what that means in a second. Just a greater than, open dot. Okay, less than or equal to, if it has that little extra line, it is a closed dot. And then greater than or equal to, extra little line, so another closed dot. Okay, so what this means, let's go back to number 3. So what this means is, first thing you have to identify is we need to put a point on our number line. So the number tells you where to put that point. Okay, so in this case, our point is at 5. Okay, positive 5, that's right there. So now you need to look at the sign. Okay, k is greater than 5. Okay, so since our sign is that guy, greater than, that means it's an open dot. So open dot on 5, you're gonna place your dot on 5. Okay, but now we have to draw an arrow. So this is really nice. This little sign right here that I just drew right there, just turn that into an arrow, put that line right in the middle of it, and that tells you which direction you're gonna draw your arrow, meaning k can be any number greater than 5. It's an open dot because it is not 5, okay? But it can be anything greater than 5. Okay, it can be 6 because 6 is greater than 5. It can be 7, 8, 9, anything greater than 5, anything on this number line. Okay, let's look at number 4. So look at your number, again, it's 5. So I'm gonna put some type of point at 5, but this time it is greater than or equal to. Okay, that little extra, that little line tells us closed dot. Okay, so it's a closed dot at 5. Okay, then all you have to do is turn that little sign into an arrow, and it's gonna tell you which way to draw your arrow, meaning you could plug any one of these numbers on the number line going all the way to negative infinity, and it would work, right? 4 is less than 5, okay? 5, since it's a closed point, is less than or equal to. 5 is equal to 5, right? That would work. So any one of these numbers, including 5, you could plug in for that n and it would work. Okay? So number 5. So look at your number. That's going to tell you where you're going to put your point. This time it's a +4. That's right there on my number line. Okay, this time it is less than or equal to again. Okay, less than or equal to. Whoops, I already drew the arrow. Okay, so it has that extra little line, so we know it's a closed point at +4, and the little arrow tells us which way to draw our line. Okay, I want to make this note on your paper. The little arrow only works if the variable is in front. Meaning, look at 3, 4, and 5. Okay, all the variables are in front. K is in front, N is in front, B is in front. Okay, it only tells you which direction to go if the variables are in front. So for 6, the variable is in front again, so that should work. Okay, so look at your number. In this case, it's +3. Okay, it's got the little extra right there. Okay, so it is less than or equal to, so it's a closed point. Turn that into an arrow, and that's going to tell you which way to shade your number line. Okay, and there we go. That is how you graph an inequality. So now let's look at number 7. So now our directions say to solve each inequality and then graph its solution. Okay, so notice we can't just say n is less than or equal to -22 because we also have this -17 right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to underneath here, let me zoom out just a little bit so you can see. Okay, underneath I'm going to rewrite this and we're going to solve it. Okay, so I'll do it in this color. So -17 plus n is less than or equal to -22. Just like when we were solving equations, we're trying to figure out what number is that n representing. Okay, so the only other thing on the side with the n, because we're trying to get n all by itself, so the only other thing is this -17. So what is the opposite of -17? Okay, we're going to do the same thing we did when solving equations. Draw your line down your sign. This time it's just an inequality sign, not an equal sign. Okay, we got to untie the knot. Okay, we'll write those 2 steps again. Untie, and then remember, keep it balanced. Okay, so we got to untie the knot first. So the opposite of -17 or -17 is add 17. Okay, we untied it, but now we have to keep it balanced, so you got to do the same thing to both sides. Okay, bring down what's left. It's just our n. N is less than or equal to -22 plus 17. You're always welcome to use a calculator. So we're in the negatives and we're getting closer to the positives, but we're still going to end at -5. Okay, so now this little piece right here looks exactly like these little guys. Remember, the variable is all by itself. Okay, so now we can go ahead and graph this. Okay, so go ahead and graph that because that's our answer. N is less than or equal to 5. Okay, so we're going to want to put our point at -5, excuse me. Okay, it's going to be a closed dot because it's equal to, less than or equal to, so closed point at 5. Okay, the little arrow points that way, so we're going to shade our arrow that way. And we did it. Okay, 2 things we have to do on these problems, right? 1 is solve, 2 is graph. Okay, so let's go to number 8. Okay, so number 8 we have, I'm going to rewrite our equation. 2 is greater than or equal to x minus 11. Okay, we're trying to solve for x. So draw your line down your greater than or equal to sign. Okay, the only thing we have to do to get x all by itself is to get rid of this minus 11. The opposite of minus 11 is add 11. Okay, we untied it. Now we have to keep it balanced by doing the same thing to both sides. Bring down what's left. Greater than or equal to, what is 2 plus 11? 13, right? Okay, so notice here, is the variable in front. Remember, the arrow only works, it only tells us which way to go if our variable is in front. On this guy, our variable comes second. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna switch it. Okay, and it's almost like you're just completely flipping it over. Okay, that's gonna flip that sign over too. So what this is really saying is, okay, always keep that gator. Remember the alligator mouth, it wants to eat the 13, so X, and then it still wants to eat that 13. Okay, so now our X is all by itself and we can go ahead and graph. Okay, so you're gonna wanna put look at the sign, it has that little extra line, so that tells us closed point. So a closed point at positive 13, and now it'll tell us which direction to go. It's pointing that way. So our arrow is shaded that way. Beautiful. We solved, and then we graphed. Okay. Let's look at number 9. Ooh, this is a weird one. Okay, we got fractions here. That's okay. Okay, so we're gonna rewrite it. 11 over 18 is less than, okay, not equal to n over 18. Okay, don't freak out because we're dealing with fractions. Watch how nice this is. So draw your line down your equal sign. Okay, the only thing attached to my n, because you're trying to get the n by itself, right? The only thing attached is this divide by 18. And the opposite of divide by 18 is multiply by 18. That is how we untie it. Okay? Well, once we balance it, once we do it to both sides, look at that. Okay, 18 over 1. Okay, this is where fractions are really cool. If you see the same thing, just like when the same thing's on top and bottom, if it's on crisscross and it's being multiplied, those things cancel out. Okay, so all that's left here is that 11 and our n. Okay, bring down your sign. Okay, this time the alligator wants to eat the n, but the n we want in front. Okay, so we have n, is greater than 11. Okay, now we can go ahead and graph it. So this time, there's no little extra line, it's just greater than. So it's gonna be an open dot on positive 11, and it's telling you which way to point, so it's pointing that way. So we're shaded that way. Okay, make sure you put your arrow points on the end, because it goes on forever. Okay, number 10. Okay, so let's rewrite it. So this time it's saying 13 times something is greater than 247. Okay, so let's draw our line down our equal sign. So 13 times x. What is the opposite of times by 13? We divide by 13. Okay, that untied it. Now we do the same thing to both sides. Okay, bring down what's left. X is greater than, okay, this time I'm actually going to have to use a calculator because I don't want to solve that in my head. Okay, but that's totally fine. We can always use a calculator. Okay, so I have 243 divided by 13 equals, oh, it's not 243, it's 247. 247 divided by 13 equals, I was wondering why I got a decimal, but we didn't. It is 19. Okay, this time our x is in front, so we don't have to switch anything, so it's just x is greater than 19. Okay, so we can go ahead and graph that. So since it is just the greater than sign, there's no extra. It is an open dot, so we know it's an open dot at positive 19. Okay, the arrow is pointing that way to the right, so we're going to shade to the right. And there we go. Okay, so it's the same exact way that you solve equations. Now we're just graphing them. Okay, so there are your notes. If you filled them out, awesome job. You're not required to turn those in, but make sure you do your math assignment below. Thanks.